welcome back to another episode of RMC. This week we are going to be talking about nutrition.
Specifically nutrition for performance.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
All right, so who wants to start it off? What do we want to dive into first? I just had lunch, so I'm feeling good. My brain is active. I shouldn't say lunch, I had my breakfast. So my second meal, I'm a big...
At 1 o'clock?
Yep, big meal prepper. So Sundays are strictly for meal prep. I finally have consolidated my long day into 2 hours. I get all my meals done for the week and rock and roll. So overnight oats is first meal, eggs and potatoes second meal. This week and last week was the exact same. Third meal is chicken and sweet potatoes and a lot of peppers and onions, so like fajitas. And then I'm rocking on burger bowls late at night with sweet potatoes as well.
Sure.
So I've been rolling no extreme amount of carbs lately.
Yeah, it seems low.
And it's been helping my stomach because I'm having a flare up right now. So.
Nice. Why don't you CrossFit has like a stance on nutrition, right? You know, we're in a CrossFit gym and, you know, we can talk about performance in and outside the CrossFit space as well. But that seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, nutrition as a whole in our sport, in our profession, nutrition is the pillar of the building blocks to our pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. So the pyramid starts out, we have the nutrition, you have metabolic conditioning, you have weightlifting, you have gymnastics, and then you have sport that tips it off at the tip of the spear. And truly without it, a lot of people, you can get a great workout and you can do everything in your day-to-day life, but you really can't outwork a bad diet. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth. And that's where, I mean, everything kind of stems around with what we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. So.
And I think there's also like, we're everyday people. We're not the CrossFit athletes, right? No. And I think in general, people when they talk about CrossFit need to understand, well, the public, I think when you're in a gym, you quickly learn that there's a difference between CrossFit for everyday people and CrossFit, what you see on YouTube and TV. But the performance is different too for that high level athlete in terms of nutrition and the nutrition for a regular person going to a CrossFit gym as well. I
mean, let's back it up there. Everybody that walks into a gym is an athlete. We're all athletes. So we need to eat like one and we need to train like one and we need to just have the mindset to stay within that performance realm. So
let's start from speaking of, you know, pyramid and building block, like start from the foundation of what does good nutrition mean to you guys? Because I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of like what that means or how that looks in their life. So as coach, as, you know, chiropractor, how would you describe like what does that mean to an individual who's either curious just in general or has a specific goal for performance?
For an individual and in general for individual, are you the weight that you want to be at, and are you performing and doing the things you want to and recovering the way you want to? I think that's really the first stepping stone in question. And if the answer is no, then you can start to tinker around a little bit and figure out what needs to change from them. You know, even just like a calorie perspective, I think an easy way of like, people don't normally just count calories, but if you just weigh yourself every day, and if you maintain the same weight, you know, even without counting calories, whatever you're doing on a daily, weekly basis is probably a maintenance dose because you're not fluctuating.
I was just going to say the fluctuation in your body image alone is going to be drastic, right? Because you could say you're eating amazing and following, maybe it's a fad diet or you're just eating to eat correctly, whole foods, all that good stuff. And your body's going to change, right? And all of us or everybody out there should be thinking about, hey, what's going to get me through the day? Not overindulging and just being consistent throughout the week. It also will minimize the amount of time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, like you guys said, it's to have a goal, right? That has to be crystal clear, because I think if you just go in thinking, I just want to be healthier, I just want to eat healthy, quote unquote, like, you know, for what purpose? I think a lot of people that's how they get into crash dieting, and they'll like starve themselves for a week or 2 weeks, and then it comes right back because it's not sustainable, right? So what's your goal, but like really make it crystal clear, not just I want to lose weight, but like, you know, what's the specific number and why? And then two, just, recognize that there is some variability, as I'm sure we'll get into. Like, you don't have to necessarily fit a specific diet plan all the time.
And if that was somebody's goal, I just want to generally eat healthier and be healthier, not even thinking about the performance aspect of it, but okay, well, how much protein do you have? How much fiber do you have? And what's your water intake, right? Those three, fiber, hydration, and protein, will be huge. And then you get the conversation, the question back, I really actually don't know what protein is, right? I don't even understand what that word macronutrient means. And then you can kind of dig around from there.
For sure. You're looking at me like it's my turn.
No.
Looked like you had some interesting
Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm just trying not to hold the mic.
No, that was a perfect.
It was
you
like,
both turned, and I'm like,
passing the baton.
all
Try
right.
to share the mic time.
Mics are hot. No, I mean, I don't even know where to bounce off of that. We're gonna have to cut that out.
Yeah, of course.
Damn.
All right, get your F-bombs out now.
I got no F-bombs. No F-bombs. That was funny.
Yeah.
Well, just think, I guess, coaching a specific sport, then you could start with what would be good nutrition for CrossFit, because obviously every activity is very different, every sport's very different. But if somebody came to you, maybe they're new or they're not new, but they just have a concern of making sure that their nutrition fits CrossFit. What are maybe some general tips or guidelines?
I mean, first and foremost, what's your background? Where are you coming from? Meaning, are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to be able to keep up with your kids? Are you preparing for the next season in college or high school athletics? And then we're going to kind of break it down to bare bones. You need to understand how much you should consume. And we'll start with lazy macros. So one thing that I teach and talk about with everybody that comes in for foundations is going to be just kind of like a short and sweet to the point, based off of the size of your hand, right? So protein, if you eat meats, right, you should be consuming a fistful, right, or a hand size of protein for every meal, period, right? Eggs, meats, so on and so forth, fish, beans, legumes, all that good stuff. Off of that, depending on your activity level, then you're moving into your carbohydrates, right? That's your ability to continuously move, stay with it. So potatoes, rice, grains, all that good stuff, okay? And then we want to think about how much level of activity we're having for that day, and that's going to dictate it. So if I'm doing a workout and I'm going for a run and I'm moving around all day, things at work or at home, maybe I'm cleaning out the garage, I'm maybe going to have 2 hands or 2 fists of carbohydrates. If I didn't move very much and I only got a little bit of movement in, maybe I'm going to cut it in half, right? And then last but not least, we're going to go to that fats. Everybody thinks that it's bad for you. No, they're good for you. Eat some good avocados and all that good stuff, right? And I'm going to say just stay with a quarter, right? Quarter to a half, depending on, again, your activity level, right?
It's an easy way of thinking about it and just getting the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. When it comes to, for maybe more analytical people, I kind of give a range depending on what their goals are. Starting with protein, it should be anywhere between 0.5 grams to 1 gram per body weight. So like, Sam, if you weigh 200 pounds,
Which I do approximately.
And yeah, I figured as much. You look like a 200
depending
pound
on
guy.
the day.
Depending on how much pizza on Sunday.
Right.
In your left cheek.
Exactly.
If you weigh 200 pounds, 0.5 grams per pound is 100 grams of protein.
Right.
And that's like a bare minimum, but sometimes for people, that's just like, they actually come nowhere close to that.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Gals to guys, they're the biggest, right? We want to make sure that everybody's consuming the right amount, right? And not getting into that realm of, oh man, that's so much food. We'll go back. I'll cut that part out.
Okay.
That's right.
Go back to what you were saying. Sorry, I totally chimed in.
That's fine. But if you were going for maximum performance and you want as much protein as possible, you got your fat and your carbohydrates dialed in, for whatever reason, if you deemed you want 1-to-1 ratio, that's 200 grams of protein a day, which can be pretty hard. I've reached for that sometimes. A little over 200 pounds a day, or 200 grams a day.
200 pounds of meat.
200 pounds of meat, that's a big
Are
boy.
you a millionaire, sir?
But that range and kind of figuring out what that means, and then going and creating ideas of how do you get to 100 grams, or how do you get to 75 grams of protein a day, you know, if you're actually measuring out. But I really like that example of just thinking about the fists, because if you have nowhere to start and you're just trying to do things on your own, that's a great starting point.
Yeah, I think it's cool to have the contrast between both of what you guys propose, as far as like how do you track what you're doing, or how do you hold yourself to a different standard of nutrition, because everyone's personality is very different, their outlook's very different. I think that's a lot of where the art form of being a good coach or a good healthcare practitioner comes in, where like we have the data, we have the research, right, the numbers, but some people's personalities are not as inclined to align with that, or it just becomes too stressful, which I totally get. It's like, you know, you need an Excel spreadsheet just to know what to eat. Like, that's crazy. So to have, like, for the more, you know, quote unquote type B personality of just like fistful, handful kind of variations, just rough guidelines, I think that's fantastic. Like, don't let nutrition like overwhelm you to the point where it's useless to talk about it. But we do have those guidelines for more of those like type A individuals. If you really want to be detailed and that helps you, great. Like, whatever's going to get you from point A to point B, that's the key.
Should we go to some real life examples?
Sure.
So Sam, obviously your background prior to CrossFit was Olympic weightlifting. When you were going through the prep, what kind of diet did you follow?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I mean, my like current goal, I would say professionally, but also personally, with clients and just people I interact with, is really based in large part on my nutritional history, if you will. So I'll go back even further and say that my main sport growing up was football, high school and year into college, and then I stopped playing freshman year, started sophomore year. And by that point, I had like intentionally bulked up, and it wasn't a good bulk. It was like, you know, just obsessed with getting a higher number on the scale. And I realized, like, man, I am like not good big. So, you know, really then tried to hone in on, okay, what's the specific plan I got to follow? So shout out to Renaissance Periodization, free advertisement here. If you're not familiar with them, look them up. They're
Dr. Mike would appreciate it.
absolutely is Rightel. They're awesome. So I came across them. There you go, got a stance. Came across them, and you know, not to necessarily plug them entirely, because there's tons of other fantastic resources out there, but I followed them, and for me it was helpful just to have a structure of you know, how many macros should I hit at different phases, and then also how should I progress gradually out of you know, baseline nutrition or a baseline calorie count, and then slowly lose weight versus just, you know, crash dieting. So after a couple months of that, then got used to it, lost about 50 pounds in a year after stopping football, and then got into weightlifting and still followed their general concepts. But
This is college at this point for you?
yeah, this was like sophomore, junior year of undergrad, and then got into Olympic weightlifting, and obviously had to still manage my weight there. But at that point, I had like a good feel for, okay, you know, I know what, like, you know, 40 grams of protein or what chicken looks like, you know, for example. So I wasn't like measuring everything as much, but I had a general sense. So that's kind of what I mean my previous point, and I've kind of stuck with that for a while. And you know, recognize like there's room for some variability. So for me, that's what helps. I just like the consistency of that structure, and it's been helpful so far.
It's awesome. How about you, Garrett? You ever done any, not necessarily fad diets, but anything specific for yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, nutrition is a big part of my life, being type 1 diabetic. But even outside of my running endeavors, outside of, you know, wrestling, outside of, you know, when I was really big into lifting, my performance as a chiropractor, and just as, you know, as an athlete in here and athlete within my own practice, I think about myself as I need a fuel forward performance for that. Yeah. And part of that is that, you know, what am I doing that day versus different days, and how easily are things digestible? Again, a little bit of a caveat, just because carbs and sugars are a little bit different for me and how I dose insulin. However, it's like I aim for easily digestible things that will fuel my body. So like, it's pretty regular that I wait until around, typically anywhere from 8 to 10, and might have like a beef stick. Protein, I try to have protein always as the first thing I consume, but then I'll have either straight berries or berries and like Greek yogurt. And then I'll try to have some kind of meal that isn't too heavy for lunch, but that will fuel me with probably higher carbs high protein, lower fat, and then sustain it through with plenty of fluids of different kinds, and then dinner is, whatever I need to kind of finish off the day. So I'm thinking about how can I be light and fast, and actually the days that I work, I eat more versus the weekend, where like when I'm not seeing people on Tuesdays, like I actually eat less because I don't need that amount of consumption. I'm a little bit more sedentary. So like day to day, it changes, but I really like thinking about total calories and carbs and protein on a week to week basis. Like what am I doing this week, and kind of playing.
Really? So you plan it out like in a week ahead, like not ahead, but you plan per se, not by the day, where most people are like, I got to hit this 200 grams of protein. I got to hit 180 to 200 grams of carbohydrates, and then you roll into your fats of 75 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
just like spin numbers. You go out of a 7-day period, you're saying you're going to consume this much.
And if in a way, or check myself, I kind of intuitively know how to do that now. But yeah, I've done that, looking at the week concept, because in reality, if you are going to day to day, and if you are really counting your macros and your calories, you're going to have a day where you go over. And then just because you have a bad day, because you have a bad day at that moment doesn't mean the rest of the day is gone, right? That can quickly spiral. But it also means that the next day doesn't mean that you pay for it the next day, but you kind of balance it out, right? And at the week aspect of things, it can be really even. It's not like you have one crappy day and then the rest of the week's good. This was a tough day and I balanced it out. And through a physiology of just going throughout the days and the weeks, ends up being pretty net neutral. And I used to do a lot of intermittent fasting, and that helped with that as well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
A lot of research out there for that one. Like intermittent fasting is amazing if you can follow it, right? But that comes down to time.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I was going to kind of segue into, is a lot of people really struggle with nutrition when it comes down to, hey, I don't have the time in my day to eat 6 meals, right? Or let alone 3, right? 3 basic meals throughout the day. So they're like, oh, I have a shake in the morning, and then I have, some yogurt and a protein bar, and they only supplement everything. And it's like, okay, let's pump the brakes. The supplementation should be specific to an aid after a workout or some kind of crazy day. But that whole food, you gotta smash the food, man. Yeah. That's a huge part.
Yeah, I think of it in terms of, I agree, supplements need to be addition to. You got to have the whole food aspect first and think about it that way and learn from that before you just, go for the low-hanging fruit, pun intended, because we're talking about food, or unintended, and then you reach for the more advanced stuff, which supplementation, some other things like that. But I think about it as 3 ways, and this came from Peter T., which I really like thinking about is, you can think about the times that you eat, like throughout the day. That could be a big factor. You could think about how much you eat, whether that be calories or macros or whatever, and then you could think about the quality of food, right? And those 3 levers, and you can play around with those and find what's right for you. And then inside of the quality or the actual amount that you eat, you can play around with that too, depending on things. But it's so much easier, like when you are at a desk job, or and you're not moving, or a student, to be mindful on how much you're drinking water, and maybe thinking about your food more compared to if you're on your feet all day. I mean, so many people I just don't stop. Like if you ever talk to like a hairdresser or a nail tech, they're just on their feet their entire day. They're like, they don't eat anything for 12 hours,
Nurses.
Nurses.
Anybody in the hospital setting, I feel for them, right? I have a little bit of a luxury where it's like, I've gotten really good at eating fast. Like not good to say the least, but you got 7 minutes. It's like, okay, I'm going to smash my food as fast as I can, and just move on with the rest of my client list or class list or whatever I got going on.
And then that's you, and that's your life. If you wanted to go from what's the best way to eat, you would say, well, best for digestive health isn't eating fast.
Correct.
However, your life is your life, right?
Yeah.
And I think you brought up stress and not being afraid to eat. Like that's a big part of so much of diet and food. People get so freaked out. And what's the best for me? So just because it's not ideal for you to eat fast doesn't, with your life,
or follow an application or a scheme, right? Like that's a huge stressor.
Yeah.
Most people freak out about it.
I think a lot of times too, like we use the comparison or the analogy that our bodies are machines, and of course, to some extent they are, but I think people can take that too far and think that we are, if we use like a car, for example, that we're that machine-based that our bodies can't adapt, which is the amazing part about them, right? If I put 10 gallons of gas in my car, I've got 10 gallons to work with, and whatever the efficiency of that engine is how far I'm going to get. Versus some days or some weeks, I might, for whatever reason, maybe it's stress or work, I might eat a little bit more, eat a little bit less. But I think it's important to not panic and recognize like your body, as long as you're 80%ish or so doing the right stuff, like your body can adapt to that, and that's okay to fluctuate. That's life in general. That's how it's going to work. So don't beat yourself up emotionally just because you had a bad day or whatever happened throughout your workday. Maybe made it more challenging to hit your macros. Your body again is in tune with that, and it can adapt accordingly.
I think that makes me think of, I've dealt with plenty of people that have celiac, really impactful gluten intolerance, and some people that are like gluten sensitive, and that end of that spectrum, gluten sensitive, sometimes for people like, and this can be applied to all aspects of nutrition, it can be the stress of avoiding can sometimes be more detrimental than the actual stimulus of that food to our bodies that are adaptive. And that could be sometimes worse. Now, as you go along that spectrum, sometimes it does literally need to be avoided, 100%. But just to hit on the point of, so if you stress out about it so much, you are going to give yourself gut symptoms and not perform it, and your performance will go down and things like that. And I think that always has to be, especially when you're as a coach and practitioners, and when you're by yourself, you got to take a step back and think, okay, is this worth what I'm doing? Does this actually make sense?
Do I need it or do I want it? Lactose intolerant, do I need that ice cream? Is it worth what's going to be a repercussion here, or should I just stay away? Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, just
things.
think about like, really with anything, but especially with the wellness industry, if you will, like on social media, look at your favorite influencers or athletes or whatever. They're not all eating the same thing, right? Like many of them. I think it's hilarious when I hear like NFL players and like, I just have a bunch of candy before games.
That DK Metcalf. That is actually his style, right? Like, and
what is it? He has a bunch of gummy bears and once a day, and then
so he
like that,
snacks on fast glycemic or low glycemic and sugary foods, right? And then once he's done with his day, so his dinner is steak and potatoes,
right?
Like one solid, strong meal a day, and it works for him. Adaptability, but
now,
like,
granted, he's in the top 0.001% of athletes, of course, but
monster.
he's still made out of the same tissues and cells. Yeah, he's all right. He's still made out of the same stuff we are. So point is, like, it's okay to fluctuate a little bit. Like, that's fine, and then don't box yourself into saying like you have to follow the specific parameters 24/7. Everyone's body and GI system especially is going to be different. So like be okay with that.
This is a good opportunity, I think, to talk specifically about carbs and performance, what we see in the gym and everyday people for performance, sometimes, or recent years, carbs have gotten a bad rap, for various reasons. You see high athletes doing that. You see CrossFitters eating crazy amount of carbs and candy. What are your guys' thoughts on carbohydrates when it comes to performance in the gym or just a gym in general?
Sam, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think they've definitely been demonized much more than they should be, and certainly, like any nutrient, there are better sources than others. So, if somebody has primarily rice and whole grain pasta, that's not equivalent to somebody who has Skittles for their source of carbs. But I've worked with individuals, and my clinic will do VO2 testing. Part of the data we get from that is seeing what substrate are they utilizing at different exercise intensities, whether it's carbs versus fats. And one gentleman stands out to me that he was a cross-country skier, and he kept telling me like, I keep essentially like bonking out faster than I think I should. He's like, I just feel like my endurance is just not good. And he thought nutritionally everything was dialed in. He's a relatively fit guy, and we can see from the results that he was pretty much only burning off calories from fat essentially. And I asked him like, diet-wise, how do things work? He's like, I stay away from carbs because he thought it was bad stuff. I'm like, well, higher intensities, your body physiologically needs that. Like, it needs access to faster energy. And so that led to a good conversation that it's not a bad item. It's just, how do you use that, right? Not overabundance, of course, and, does it help fit your goals? So that's, a good example of, don't necessarily categorize one specific thing as universally bad. It's a tool, and you can use a tool well, or you can use it poorly.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of a performance-based athlete really like misunderstanding, what they need and recalibrating that. Personally, I was running, there was a time when I was doing keto as a type 1 diabetic, and I was doing marathon training, and I was being low carb, high fat, and the moment I switched to not keto and not, more carb based, it was great. My performance skyrocketed. And even like today, my lunch was chicken and rice, just because of how fast it is, and easily digestible it was. I know how to manage that. But it can be demonized, but some people do need to avoid it. But depending on your intensity levels, that's the big question. How intense are you doing, and how often are you doing that intensity? Really changes the game. Like you this week, you said you didn't have a lot of carbs in your meal plan, right? So how do you feel like that impacts you right now?
Well,
Everyone's different.
Yeah, no, going back to like what you said, right? Your GI tract. So I have ulcerative colitis. My stomach is inflamed in different areas all the time. Stress levels don't help, and I'm currently having a flare-up. I thought we were going to make it through. We were moving around like, dude.
That's right. We'll stay on the topic once you pop back in.
There we go.
There it is. Close.
Just motion sensitive. It's got to be big, gross motion. Really.
You gotta get one of those like blow up.
I was about to say we made like a metronome or something, just to like keep moving over there so it picks it up next time.
All right. So,
anyway, you were saying.
anyways, so I have ulcerative colitis. My large intestines are a little bit messed up in comparison to other people. So inflammation is firing at different areas in my large intestine all at the same time, right? So I've been going through a flare-up. I have been in the last 3 weeks dialing back my carbohydrate intake and I shouldn't say dialing it back. I'm still consuming carbs, but I'm consuming more of a potato, so an anti-inflammatory more so. Just something easier on the gut to digest. And honestly, I'm always telling people, eat carbs, don't shy away from it, because it helps with the performance, it helps with recovery. People always think like, no, I can't have that. But truly, like I've actually been feeling more awake where I don't need caffeine or a nap throughout the day, which is wild. And again, this is just an experiment for myself. I'm not swearing off carbs for the rest of my life. Like,
sure,
I'm gonna smash whatever I want to smash, right?
Well, I think the reality of like a CrossFit workout, whether you're doing, let's just say 4 times a week, the WOD, or the actual metabolic conditioning, or the highest intensity of the workout, it's probably on average 10 minutes at a time, right? So you have 40 minutes of high intensity throughout the week. It doesn't mean you need to go overboard on the carbs. Carbs can be a huge benefit to your life, but I don't think it means that you need to, where the example of it was cross-country skier, right? Like you don't need to be like, or if you're doing a marathon, totally different.
4-hour realm through, or a 2-hour spout of how many runs are you actually going down and smoking your quads in that position? Like
versus 40 minutes of high intensity, like those are different goals, different activities, right? But you can still use it in a good way, because you said like low glycemic foods and stuff like that you're consuming. That's excellent. So I think applying it to what you're trying to do is the biggest thing, and asking that question, well, what does this mean for me? And then you dive in from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How about you?
What was the question?
You're right.
Specifically about...
No, specifically, we already talked about diabetic portions.
Right.
So then, what do we go from there? Where do we go from there, sir?
I'll just talk about like maybe my prioritizing.
I had a huge, when you were talking before, I had a really good one that I was like, damn, this is perfect. Perfect segue, and now I already lost my train of thought.
I'll just jump in, and for me, the priority for me is protein. Making sure I hit that. For me, I try to hit anywhere from probably close to 170 grams of protein. Now I don't really calculate that. Early in the year, I was like clocking that in a lot.
Are you weighing your food?
Yeah.
still currently?
Some of the foods, like I weigh my yogurt. Sometimes I'm curious. I'll weigh a chicken breast because sometimes you'll do that fist test. Like, that's like a small, but I've weighed it and it's like, wow, this chicken breast, I ate like 67 grams of protein right there in one meal. And so like sometimes you got to recheck in with yourself.
Right.
And I think as a diabetic too, I've learned that like I carb count because I have to. Like I always carb count, even though that's not the priority. But it's like, oh, this piece of bread's probably 12 grams of carbs for that slice, but you do that for so long, and that's what you're used to, and next thing you know, you check in and recalibrate. Well, actually, this bread and this brand's like 18 grams, the sourdough per half-inch slice or something like that. So the priority is protein for me, and then from there, everything else builds around it. Make sure I have enough fiber, make sure I eat apples, things like that. So that's kind of the priority. I think a lot of people, that's a good place to start, is the priority system is protein, and then build it off from there.
Protein is a solid building block. Moving into the carbohydrates, fats to follow. Hydration should be actually right next to your protein intake. I know I have days where I'm sucking from my bottle a ton, but I have other days where it's like, man, I haven't drank anything, and I have cotton mouth, and I need to figure it out.
Somebody asked me, I think last week, as we were talking about water intake, like, sometimes I remember at the end of the day that like I haven't hit my 87 ounces of water because that's what we deemed was what they needed. And I only had like maybe 16, but it's like 10 o'clock. Like, should I chug it all? My answer was, that's not ideal. You shouldn't do that. Having water in your system is better than none. So yeah, I mean, you try chugging it. You're gonna wake up in the middle of the night.
Yep. You're gonna have to pee your pants.
And urinating. But having that water in your system will then set you up for a little bit better the next day, and maybe you'll learn, continue to learn. So I think that hydration, that water content, making sure it's in there, like you said, hydration is important. So. Yeah.
We've covered a lot of different topics or subtopics, if you will. So like from each of your guys' perspective, what would be, we just boil it down to like one general principle or guideline for somebody who wants to make sure that their nutrition is as good as possible. What would you guys suggest to them? Obviously it's a broad question, but curious what your guys' perspectives are.
Start. It's the biggest thing. Just start. It might not have to be the hardest thing. I think calorie counting is extremely hard. But just break it down by the meal. Find things that you like. Try to take out, the non-whole foods, right? So every meal you're having your proteins, your carbs, your fats, which is your macronutrients. We didn't talk about that at the beginning. We probably could have. But like you follow a little bit more of those guidelines, and it's going to be an easier way for you to start. You think about your proteins, the things that you like, then from there you think about your carbohydrates or your grains and stuff like that, and then your sauces. That's your fats, because you can't get rid of your sauce. It's the good stuff.
Sure. If I were to say something else, but outside of protein, just starting is a great tip. So something similar outside of just making sure your protein's number one would be start to just be aware and write things down in a journal, and just without any counting of any kind, without looking into carbs, without looking in fat or protein, just get used to understanding what is this, because a lot of people don't know what is a carb, what is a protein, what is a fat. Your fat is a sauce, but oils, butter, fat can sneak in without you really knowing. Just start to be curious about labels. If you have, when you have a package, something that's packaged with a label on it, and just write it down. And then it doesn't mean you have to be religious about it when you're just getting started. But I think I've worked with people that are just so scared to do anything about it. Just getting started, and then so just start, and also maybe write a few things down daily, and maybe do that 4 out of 7 days of the week, and just see how you do.
Yeah, love it. I mean, for me, a lot of my one piece of advice would come from honestly personal experience, just knowing my personality, which is don't set yourself up for failure, specifically with nutrition. What I mean by that is don't put yourself in a position where you're going to give in to the things that you know are bad. Like I will destroy a package of Oreos if it's in front of me. Same. And I know I shouldn't.
Thought you were totally going to say I drive past McDonald's, I'm going.
Well, I mean, I would, yeah. I mean, if money were a thing, I love to eat junk food. I think that's also something that's, kind of a side note. There's a lot of, people that, go to the gym consistently, and yeah, maybe it looks like, they eat perfectly fine all the time, but, we all love junk food, right? It's kind of the point of it. But the biggest thing, advice-wise, I would say is, don't if you can't resist the food, like don't buy it. Don't put it in your house.
That's
you
a
know,
big
I can't eat a bunch of junk food if it's at the grocery store. You know, I'm gonna resist that temptation a lot easier. So do what you can to buy the things that are generally better for you, and you'll be surprised just how much easier it is to not have to mentally struggle with resisting the junk food.
And I think with that too, I mean, big thing, unless you're living by yourself, you have a partner, you got a family, you got a husband, you got a wife, you got kids, buying things that for the entire family, but it's like, if you're gonna go on a journey, your whole family either needs to understand, acknowledge it, go on the journey with you, and or have like, okay, I'm gonna be doing this. Can we not buy that in the household? Are you okay if I don't get the Oreos, you know, for the pantry?
Yeah.
And that conversation sometimes needs to happen to set yourself up for success. Because a lot of times I've had people like, just like, my husband just keeps on buying this and he just doesn't care that he's diabetic or about, you know, I'm trying to change myself. And so setting yourself up for success sometimes is also having the conversations with the people around you to do that. So
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, because I definitely am a salty person when it comes down to it. If I see a bag of chips, game over.
Ooh, yeah, that too.
And then I feel bad for myself, and then I'm like, this is why I don't buy them. But then you start finding other things and other recipes, and you're like, oh, well, I just bought flour tortillas. I'm going to air fry them and throw some salt on it. Bang. I made my own chips.
yeah, I remember when I was in grad school, and I was really like grocery shopping outside, because when you're in college, you're really not, undergrad, not really doing a whole lot of that. It's like, this is just go to the grocery store and make better choices. Like you just,
All I'm getting is chicken,
no one's
rice,
buy the
and
Oreos,
chicken, rice, and peas, right, Sam?
Yeah.
but
And
then
don't put any seasoning
No
on it.
seasoning, yeah.
but then the reality.
Don't
of
do
it
that,
is-
people. You have to make sure you season your food.
I'm 7% Irish, so that explains it, yeah.
Yeah, I have some Irish friends that were like, I didn't know what salt was till I was 19 years old.
So gross, dude. Like bland food, sure, once in a while, but like, again, I'm all about, you got to have a little bit of sauce.
Make it enjoyable, yeah.
Are you a ketchup on eggs person?
On eggs.
Scrambled
I don't know
eggs.
if I tried it, yeah.
Scrambled eggs?
Yeah,
You've never
I
had
grew
that
up with
before?
that.
I don't know if I have on eggs.
Wow.
I grew up with scrambled eggs.
I'll throw it in some mac and cheese on it after I make it for the kids. But
Mac and cheese on eggs?
the one
No, ketchup.
on mac and cheese.
Oh, ketchup on mac and cheese.
Ketchup on mac and
Is there
cheese,
hot
yeah.
dogs in it?
No, not
That's
for me.
wild.
For the kids, they might have it.
That's
But
wild.
that's another life hack. Have kids not for. I mean, just so that you can buy extra mac and cheese and make them a ton, and then you just get to eat all of it. So nobody questions you. If I just bought mac and cheese for myself, it's weird. But if it's like leftover for the kids, then
Damn. I think that's a great episode, you guys.
All right.
Thank you very much for tuning in to RMC. If you tuned in last week, obviously we had that, or I should say last time, excuse me, we had that mindset breakdown. Week before that, we talked about pain. Obviously this one was nutrition. Everything's kind of cascading into each other. So tune in next time.